Canto 9 Part 1 has just been released in Limbus company, and with it we got a banner with two brand new identities, LCA Udjat Vanguard Team Outis and the Index Proselyte Faust. Both of these new identities play around sinking, while their secondary effects are tremor and poise respectively. These units contest some older identities in their preferred teams, while adding interesting mechanics to think about. But are they strong enough to take those spots for themselves, or do they fall short in certain ways? In today's video I want to answer these questions and talk about LCA Outis, leaving Faust for later. To do that, I will go over Outis' kit and then I'll look at her performance in Sinking and Tremor, while comparing her to other Outis identities in those archetypes. But before we start, allow me to remind you that most of my viewers are not subscribed. So if you find yourself coming back to my videos or end up enjoying this one, consider subscribing. It takes just 1 second and helps me out a lot. Now let's get to Outis. We'll start with her kit. LCA Outis has decently high health, average speed and an above average defense level. Her sin affinity spread consists of Pride, Sloth and Gloom, with a Gloom defense. All of Outis' skills gain coin power from Sinking and Tremor on the target. Her skill 1, Hoppish Swordplay, gives Outis 3 aggro and gains clash power if she has the Udjat Vanguard. On clash win, it inflicts 2 shoot fracture. The coins of the skill inflict tremor and sinking count, and also give Outis 1 protection next turn. Her skill 2, Mirage Incision, gives Outis 5 aggro on use and gets 2 clash power and deals more damage if Outis has the Udjat. On clash win, the skill inflicts 2 shoot fracture, and its coins inflict 2 sinking potency and count, 2 tremor and 1 tremor count, as well as give Outis 1 protection next turn. Outis' skill 3 deals extra damage if she has the Udjat, gives Outis a lot of aggro and gains base power based on the amount of ammo the skill is about to spend. After attack, Outis gains 2 protection next turn, and reloads if she is at 2 ammo or less, up to 5 times. The first coin of the skill spends 2 ammo, deals more damage based on the ammo spent, and inflicts 2 sinking and tremor count. The second coin inflicts sinking, blue sand on the next turn, and gloom resist down on the same turn. And the last coin spends 2 ammo and deals more damage again, while inflicting some more sinking and bursting tremor once, and then bursting it again if the target has SP, and if the target is below 0 SP, the coin also inflicts 1 gloom fragility. Outis' defensive skill is a normal guard called Composure. When Outis is hit while she still has shield, she inflicts 3 sinking against the attacker, up to 3 times per turn. On use, if Outis has the Udjat, she gains 1 protection, and then for every protection on self, the skill gives Outis a shield equal to 5% of her max HP, up to 15% once per turn. As for Outis' passives, she has 2. The first one gives Outis 1 stack of the Udjat Vanguard, if an enemy has any panic type changing effect. Then, if Outis has the Udjat, she inflicts 1 shoot fracture on hit with base attack skills, up to 15 per turn. If the coins spend LCA fracture rounds, Outis inflicts 1 more shoot fracture per round spent. Also, the protection gain from Outis' skills and the Udjat is kept at 5 per turn. The second passive requires 3 Gloom Resonance to activate, and it allows Outis to deal 5% more damage for every protection on self, up to 15%, while also giving her 2 stacks of the Udjat. As for her support passive, Outis gets Eagle Eye, which also requires 3 Gloom Resonance to activate, and applies 1 protection to the ally with the lowest HP percentage at combat start. Before moving on to Outis in combat, I want to also look at the unique effects that she works with. The Udjat Vanguard is her main resource. It stacks up to 2, increases Outis' speed by 3 and gives her 1 protection at combat start. Then, in the combat phase, Outis gets to activate the following effects 3 times per turn, once per skill. When Outis is targeted by an unopposed attack, the chance for that skill's first coin to land on heads is halved. And at clash start, in the first clash, the chance for the enemy to flip heads on all of their skills coins is halved as well. Against enemies with negative skills, the effect instead lowers the chance of hitting tails, and at turn end, the effect loses 1 stack. Next up, Shoot Fracture stacks up to 10 and is considered unique sinking. For every stack, the enemy with the effect takes 1% more damage from Sloth and Gloom skills. At max stacks, the enemy gains 1 Gloom fragility, once per turn, then takes Gloom damage equal to sinking potency on self, and after that the effect expires. When a unit with Shoot Fracture dies, half the stack of the effect is transferred to another enemy with the highest SP. And at turn start, if there are no LCA identities on the field, the effect expires. Blue Sand is up next, and this one is a panic type changing effect. Whenever an enemy with Blue Sand loses a clash, they get inflicted with 1 sinking count, up to 3 times per turn. If the enemy has SP, their panic type changes to Blue Sand, and if not, they lose 1 speed. 1 stack is lost at turn end, and the Blue Sand panic effect lowers the enemy's clash power and speed in the low morale and panic states. And the LCA Fracture rounds are a simple type of ammo with no unique effect that stacks up to 16. With this, we're done with Outis' kit, which means we can start talking about her performance in combat. First off, let's look at the important things that LCA Outis can provide, as well as what she wants to do. All of her skills are tied to the Udjat in one way or another, so getting the effect is an important first step to using LCA Outis effectively. And there are 2 main ways to get the effect. First off, if there is any panic type changing effect inflicted on any enemy, Outis gains 1 stack of the effect at turn start. Alternatively, you can also provide 2 stacks of the effect to Outis by simply creating a triple Gloom Resonance, which activates her second passive. As you can see, as long as you have the appropriate team, getting the effect and maintaining its stack is really easy, meaning that all the Udjat related conditionals will almost always be fulfilled. The interesting thing about Outis is that her skills can deal a good amount of damage due to having access to a fairly large amount of different damage increasing effects and conditionals. And at the same time, Outis gets a lot of protection, with that effect even influencing the damage of her skills further through her passive. This means that Outis combines both solid offense and some good defense in one ID, without having to trade one off for the other. This all-rounder nature makes Outis a fantastic generalist identity for newer players that don't yet have a team built around a certain keyword. So, if you're only starting out and you got Outis from the gacha, that's pretty good news. Outside of this though, there isn't much to talk about without getting into the specifics of her signature status teams. Maybe with the exception of the fact that Outis can reload 5 times in an encounter, which allows her to effectively never ever run out of ammo. Now let's look at LCA Outis in Sinking, her first signature team. And in this team, LCA Outis has a very clear and obvious purpose: dethrone Chief Butler Outis. Butler Outis is a Season 4 identity with a powerful panic-type changing effect that inflicts sinking count, many clash win conditionals, fairly high coinage, and a 3 gloom resonance passive. If you've been paying attention, you'd know that all of what I just said also applies to LCA Outis, making the two direct rivals. But before we get into that, let's look at the strength of the new identity that are unique to the Sinking team. First of all, we have both of the debuffs that LCA Outis inflicts on the enemy. Shoot Fracture is classified as unique sinking, and it increases the damage of Gloom and Sloth skills while inflicting Gloom Fragility, which is important as Gloom is the signature sin affinity of the Sinking team, meaning that all the Sinking identities have a Gloom skill to buff. It also acts as kind of a pseudo-sinking Deathrite, with Shoot Fracture dealing Gloom damage scaling with sinking on the enemy. Blue Sand, on the other hand, is not as much of an offense-oriented effect, as what it provides is 3 free sinking count every turn for 3 turns, as long as you get to win clashes against the enemy. Another great part of Outis' kit for the Sinking team is her guard, which acts similar to that of Thumb Sinclair, but grants a larger shield to go along with its conditional, and inflicts up to 9 sinking against the attacker. And, as the skill is a guard, you get that sinking on the enemy without needing to hit them, which would reduce their sinking count. Another pretty unique and notable effect here is Gloom Resist Down, which might seem like the same thing as a Gloom Fragility on the surface, but actually it interacting with the enemy's resistances directly allows the status to increase the damage of Sinking Deluge and Butterfly, the 2 damaging effects which scale off of sinking. And now that we're on the topic of these 2 effects, we have to answer the all-important question: which style of Sinking team does LCA Outis prefer? And also, is she better than Butler Outis in either of them? Starting with Spicebush Yisang and the Deluge effect, what that style of sinking requires is a lot of count and potency infliction. Outis' skills don't really inflict much sinking on their own. All her skills are -1 in count, and the potency is not particularly high either. Blue Sand does exist though, and that covers for the negativity of Outis' skills, while also inflicting 2 more count on top of that. The actually interesting part of Outis' kit for this team is her guard. 9 potency for free is huge, and if you start the fight out with a skill 3 before transitioning into spamming defense, you can get the value of Blue Sand on up to 3 turns, on top of getting 9 potency from the guard. Also, the guard inflicts sinking in 3 separate actions, meaning that if you have Echoes of the Manor from Butler Faust, it will also provide 1.5 count on average, meaning you can expect it to inflict at least 1 extra point of count somewhat consistently. With this, you're looking at LCA Outis inflicting 9 potency and 4.5 count on turns 2 and 3, contributing to the Deluge nuke nicely. Now onto Butler Outis. As I said, she's similar to LCA, so the points about her being count negative also apply, although her skill 2 inflicts a lot more potency, while her skill 3 inflicts none. Again, Butler's evade can come to the rescue here. This skill inflicts 1 sinking on evade, up to 6 times per turn, which, with Echoes of the Manor, also results in 3 count on top of that on average. Notably, Butler can also set up echoes on her own, without outside support. The comparison here is pretty simple. 9 and 4.5 is more than 6 and 3 by exactly 50%. Also, Butler Faust is already the preferred source of echoes for this team, as when you don't care as much about physical damage and focus more on stacking, the count positive Faust is a great pickup, so having to use her is in no way limiting. Additionally, Butler Outis's best stacking skill, her evade, is very inconsistent. As for her to evade 6 coins, she needs to be targeted by at least 2 skills, which you can't guarantee, and after that she also needs to successfully evade said coins to get the value, which is pretty inconsistent in the early turns, and Spicebush doesn't really let the fight progress past those early turns. On top of all that, Blue Sand and Echoes can coexist and both provide count, while doubling down on Echoes doesn't do much except making Faust effectively give you the value of 1 proc of Blue Sand if you get the correct skill order. What I'm trying to get at here is the fact that LCA Udjat seems to blow Butler out of the water when it comes to stacking Sinking, putting her as the better identity in a Spicebush composition, which honestly isn't that shocking, as Butler Outis already wasn't all that great in there. Now, when we look at Solemn Lament and his butterflies, our priorities change. What that style of Sinking demands is high coinage to make use of the unique effect, high damage, and just enough count to not lose the stack. Against human enemies, which have been the foes in all of our hardest battles so far, stacking Sinking potency very high doesn't do much either. In this team, LCA can flex her decently high coin count and good damage, as well as her damage buffs. Blue Sand can offset her negativity and give some extra count as well, which is greatly appreciated by the many count negative identities you tend to use with Solemn Lament. Butler does a pretty similar job in this team as well. She has the same coin count except 1 more coin on her skill 3, but deals less damage and inflicts Echoes of the Manor instead of Blue Sand. Echoes of the Manor is a far better count-inflicting effect than Blue Sand, due to being uncapped, despite it relying on RNG, as the average expected result is pretty much half the amount of separate instances of Sinking Infliction in a turn, which usually is higher than 6, meaning Echoes give you more than 3 count. And while I did say that Solemn Lament cares less about count, the issue here is that pretty much all the other Sinners, except for Rodion and Gregor, swap to count neutral or negative IDs for this team, meaning that Echoes provide a very good safety net for the Sinking stack, and that safety net is greater than it is with Blue Sand. You can place Faust in the team once again, but I'd say going for Butler Outis and an ID with higher offenses is more worthwhile than going for Udjat Outis and Butler Faust. Still though, you can get by with LCA if you get all your skills lined up perfectly, and the power gap between the two on average is not tremendous. I'll stick with Butler for now, but I'd say the two units are kind of interchangeable within the team, and which one is better in the long run will depend on what kind of Sinking identities we'll get in the future. As for Tremor, yeah, LCA Outis struggles a lot more on this team. It's pretty clear that she has been designed to directly compete with her Butler counterpart, and most of her kit goes hard into Sinking. Even her unique resource needs panic type effects or gloom resonance. Both things Sinking achieves easily, while Tremor struggles to give her what she wants, and Outis herself doesn't give Tremor much. Her infliction of the effect is plain bad, with a Fed 4 potency across her entire rotation. Her bursts are only on skill 3, and even there she just has 2, compared to the modern standard of 3. The one singular good thing I can say about this ID in Tremor is the fact that she has a Pride skill 1, which is nice. She also has a Gloom guard on top of that, which, once again, is helpful, but outside of just providing the resources, her skills really just don't do anything. Mauler is a better Tremor Outis, and T-Corp is better as well. And even outside of Outis identities, there are many Tremor units available that are playing stronger and more deserving of the slot. To me, it feels like Tremor has been slapped onto her kit as an afterthought when Kim Ji-hoon remembered that the current MD meta wants double status teams. And when a status in a kit is executed like that, you can't expect it to be good. So no, LCA Udjat is not good on Tremor, and if you want a Tremor identity, you have far better options. That, by the way, I explained in my recent Tremor guide, which all of you should check out. With this, we're done with LCA Udjat Vanguard Team Outis. She's a solid sinking identity with a strong guard and a nice panic type effect, but as a Tremor ID, she is very lacking. Though sinking seems to be getting a lot of content in the beginning of the new season, so a solid sinking unit is more than useful. If you disagree or have something to add, feel free to leave a comment below, and I might read it and respond. If you liked this video at any point, leave a like to let me know, and if you want to see more like this, consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Goodbye!